Hello and welcome to Future Procurement Podcast. My name is Robert Freeman and I'm procurement expert. Sitting here in Vienna in Austria talking to Klaas Stek, who is coming from Netherlands. And Klaas is doing today the research on soft skills and hard skills in purchasing and supply chain management. And I decided to use one of our podcast episodes to promote the idea that Klaas is following, and that's why I thought that it would be great if Klaas will say more about this survey, and in the end each of you listening today can benefit from it, can contribute and then benefit. So welcome to our show, Klaas.
Thank you very much.
Can you maybe in the beginning introduce a little bit of yourself, say your background? You are PhD today, but you had quite some years of experience in different areas. Would you like to share it?
Yeah, I'm an older PhD student. I started last year, and this year I turned 50 years old. And so I had already a career before. I studied in the late 80s, beginning 90s, economics, economic sciences in Groningen, and then went working in education, grammar schools. I worked for a bank, and then, long story short, I decided to study again at University of Twente. I wanted to graduate at the Department of Purchasing and Supply Management, and then I was invited to this PhD project, and this project is called PERFECT, and that's an abbreviation of the Purchasing Education Research for European Competence Transfer. So that's a very nice abbreviation, a perfect project with perfect colleagues and perfect universities collaborating. And the five of us, the Technical University of Dortmund, Staffordshire in the United Kingdom, Hochschule Mainz, also in Germany, and Lappeenranta in Finland, and the University of Twente here in the Netherlands. And the main goal is to have a curriculum in purchasing and supply management, an harmonized curriculum. That means that we are going to make a cafeteria menu, as we call it, so that there are some main courses in a curriculum for purchasing and supply management. The university can pick these modules. So there's a lessons module with learning objectives. They can pick it out, and for specific use, you could take other courses so that you have this, the own flavor of the own university. For instance, our university is a technical university. And there's some public procurement in our courses. And for instance, the university in Dortmund is also a technical university, but much more on logistics. So they can have more logistics courses in their curriculum. So we call this a cafeteria model. But what we want to know is, what should we teach our students who are studying purchasing and supply management? That's the main goal. And we have 6 stages. And the first was landscaping, mapping what's already known in scientific literature. Second, what's in job advertisement in Europe? What do employers ask? We are currently writing a paper about this. Third, what are the learning objectives of universities? And we compare them, and what we saw is a huge gap between what employers ask and what universities deliver. I'll tell you later more about this.
That's a very interesting point. That's what we would like to.
So this is I'm working for the University of Twente. From the 1st of October, I will be visiting researcher at the University of Graz, Technical University of Graz, and the project is called PERFECT. More information on www.project-perfect.eu, and that means it's a European project, European money funded, Erasmus+, and that means that we share all our results. So on this page you can find our first white paper and white papers, and the third white paper will be on the survey on hard skills and soft skills in purchasing and supply management.
And I think for our listeners, all of these links that Klaas is mentioning, they're already published and the survey itself is out there as well. And I would ask you, Klaas, to send it to me and I will attach them to the show notes.
Okay.
Super. So many questions I want to ask you already, Klaas, and sorry for interrupting, but it's very interesting what you describe and the approach your universities are having to the education, how to make it the most adapted to the reality. Honestly, in future procurement, we so often receive the questions about the best way to get the education. People are asking both about some short courses and classes and training programs, but also about the university programs. Can you give a little bit of tips or advice for people? What is the best way to decide upon the education that people need? How to find the program that fulfills your wished position, let's say, in the best way? Do you have any tips on that? Maybe based on your researches.
It's more a general story. I would say it depends, of course. Of course, it depends on what industry you are, what phase of your career. But okay, there are maybe there are 4 points you have to look at. It's the know what. It is the know why. It's the know how, and it's the know who. Starting with the know what. That's the most important thing for us as universities, the know what. That's the book knowledge. We can write it down in print. We can make drawings of it, tables, graphs. That's important. You have to learn from the book. In that same book, there's also something like know why. That's the background. That's a theory. Yeah. What employers are looking for is know-how. That's tacit knowledge. That's silent knowledge. That means experience. Yeah. And we know this know-how, this tacit knowledge since the early 60s by Polanyi. He said we know more than we can tell. That know-how is very important. We are trying as a university to implement some know-how into our students. How do we do this? We have this serious game. We are playing this with our second grade bachelor students. They are grouped up and they are in a competitive market, in a beer market. And in the first year, the first week, they have to buy bottles for the company, and they have to look very careful because we don't need any bottle. We need some flip-top bottle with special glass. So they have to listen very careful to the internal customer. Then they have to buy this to a good price, making negotiation. The second year, they also have to buy the hops, the bells, the hops bells that give the bitter taste to the beer. They can, in the third year, they can have a alliance with a competitor and buying bottles together and having some leverage on that. And in the fourth year, they are the chief procurement officer of the beer factory, and they are in charge of everything. And in this way, in these 4 weeks, we try to give them but more experience. What we do is we are connected very closely with our chair, our department, to the Volkswagen Group, and we invite purchasers from Volkswagen, Audi, MAN truck to come over and do some lecturing. What we do is from master classes, send students out for a purchasing maturity test to companies, so that they get some experience in companies, that they have some transferred experience from professionals from the industry, that they have some experience from serious gaming. That know-how is very important. And the fourth, what I mentioned, is know who. That's who is your professor, who is your lecturer, who were your fellow students, who are your colleagues, what is your network, from who do you learn? And that's very much neglected in most cases. Coming from universities, students have no what and no why, and the rest is nothing.
That's very interesting, and I very much like. I have written these points for myself, and I mean, when I was choosing if I would have this approach, or that time, this approach could be so much better, because as you said, the same was for me. Crazy, unlogic events and thoughts, really far from what you have just said, Klaas. And maybe this is the way how you have chosen your education second time, already a more experienced person, no?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. No. But it's very funny because I was like 47 years old, coming back in school, and I made this joke. I was in a group, and the average age of this group was 24.
Okay.
Of students. So 2 of them were 18, 2 of them were 19, and one was 47. So the average was 24. And we were behaving the same. I noticed that the university is pressing students like me, even in my late 40s, into a behavior of collecting points, collecting credits, and that's what we want from students. And even when you're older, like I am, I was also calculating how many points do I have to earn this semester. Yeah, that's the approach. And of course, I could step over that. I did some extra courses for graduation. I double the amount of courses I took because I was very interested in purchasing supply chain management. So I took all those courses. But I spoke with some students about the beer game, the serious game, and asked them, how do you like the game? Yeah, they like the game, but how many credits do we get from it? And I said, don't get any credits of it. It's just getting experience.
Exactly.
Well, I don't like it so much. We have to spend time on it, and we don't get credits for it. So you have to. Well, we train students to get credits, and students are trained to get credits.
Yeah.
And
it's coming back to the question why, yeah. Why do we have this education? Is it just to have the education itself, or just to get the practical knowledge?
Yeah.
And this beer game, by the way, I was attending maybe 4 or 5 times, something like this, in different constellations in different companies. And also participate in being already a consultant. Very, very much. It's really mind shifting for me as well, but for many people who I have seen around me. If you really take it consciously, and if you really want to learn something, wow, it's fantastic. But also I agree that some people, if they don't really go deep in the meaning of it, it's just like a stupid time spending or something like that. Of course, you should be mature enough, and you should want to learn of playing this kind of games. It's not just a game, it's more than game. It's experience in really. So very, very good examples. Beer game, guys, for those who listen to us.
Yeah, there are many beer games out there.
Exactly.
Some colleagues in Germany have this bullwhip beer game. They play it on the table, not in a virtual game, but a real life game, like Monopoly on the table. And this one is invented by my fellow PhD colleague Frederick Vos at the University of Twente, and so he's now rolling it out in companies in other universities.
Klaas, if we can slowly move into your research and the purpose of research and the surveys that you have. And as I said before, we will attach the link to the survey itself to the show notes here. But can you already say what was done and why it was done, and what is your vision about this survey?
Well, let's start with the beginning. What we started with mapping landscaping. We know what employers ask in their job advertisements. We know what there is in the learning objectives of universities, what is in scientific literature. Then we had some in-depth interviews, like 40, 50 interviews with CPOs, higher personnel, purchasing managers. Those two, we reformed a maturity model into a skills model, and this skills model is it's rather huge. It's 90 questions and 90 questions and asked about, is this important for your job and are you good in it? And I did some pre-testing already, and some are important for the job and some aren't, and some are surprising, some are not so surprising. And but what is surprising is that the importance is in all cases higher than the competency. So people rate the importance of a task higher than their own competency. And we were just curious about, well, how is this possible? And it seems to be a well-known effect. It's called the, if I'm right, Dunning-Kruger effect. That means that people who are very competent are very modest about their competencies, and people who are not competent are overconfident about their competence. Okay. So that's what you normally see in daily life, that people who don't know anything about a subject are very confident, and people who know a lot about it are very, cautious to say something about it. Yeah, this is what we see also. Yeah.
I have seen recently on LinkedIn, I think somebody said that I'm already in that age where I don't know everything. There was in the past the age when I knew everything, and now I'm already after. So when you are young and ambitious, when a newbie into some area, it feels after some moment that you start to, and then the more you know, the more you have so many completed about.
There's this
very interesting finding.
This cycle that you don't know that you don't know.
Exactly.
And then you know that you don't know, and then etc. Yeah.
Okay. So this was background, and the survey itself is consisting of these questions, and then what do you plan to achieve after that? And
that's a good question. Yeah, there are 5 main goals in purchasing and supply management, and we are going to test it. It is we asked the professionals, what is your focus? Well, rank them. Are you cost driven? Are you quality driven? Are you delivery driven? Are you innovation driven? Do you seek for the innovation that suppliers have? Or do you have a much more higher goal, even a long-term competitive advantage, so that you have a supplier that is very special?
So you prioritize, yeah?
Yeah, so we asked to prioritize, not to rate them with 1 to 5, because every subject can be then rated with a 1 or a 5. So that's the beginning of the survey, and at the end we ask, the question is something like, due to my actions, we achieved lower costs in last year, and that's the kind of question. So we are checking. So your focus is costs, and are you really into cost reductions? And what we saw in the first 100 is that people say they are not into focused so much in costs, but they do at the end. So costs is still a real thing. Yeah. And what we plan to do is to find out what skills lead to success in those 5 areas. And we have 3 blood groups: purchasers from industry, purchasers from service organizations, and public procurement. And I haven't I haven't analyzed it yet. How much from which field? We now have like 350 participants, and I hope they are divided a little bit equally over the 350, so that we can make some conclusions on industry, service, and public procurement. And my proposition, we cannot hypothesize yet because there's not so much written about this in the scientific literature. So the proposition is that, and what I feel is that there's no difference in skills between that three blood groups: industry, service, and public procurement.
This is your hypothesis, so?
Yeah, well, my proposition. There is no basis for hypothesis. So it's just a proposition. That's what I feel in the field. I spoke with public procurement professors, researchers in the field, and they all, we have the same goals. And of course, there's this public procurement tender law, European laws, etc. But in fact, you need to have the same kind of skills, soft skills. And some hard skills are different, of course. You need to know something about law and jurisdiction and that kind of legal stuff.
That's very interesting. And as I said, that we will attach. Can you say how long do you think this research take time, and will you be able to share if our listeners or anybody will fill in the survey? Will they get the report?
Well, first of all, you can download your answers. Immediately you can see the statistics, what the others did. So you can compare and benchmark your answers with those of your predecessors in the survey. That at first. Second, this is a European funded survey, and so we are happy to share the results with anybody. And it's published on our website I just mentioned. So that's project-perfect.eu. Yeah. There will be a white paper with the basics. Well, we are always happy to give some extra information, or if it's very interesting, we can cooperate. So I'm open for suggestions with the listeners.
Super. Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining and for sharing, and I really encourage you, dear listeners, if you are curious about research that has been done so far and the results of the research the big participating lead, please follow the link. Klaas, coming closer to the end of our podcast, can you give some final tips and advice from your perspective, from how can our procurement and supply chain purchasing friends contribute to their in the best way?
I think everybody has to understand that purchasing is on the move. It's changing the way we are doing business. It's changing also service organizations. It's also changing public procurement. Purchasers could end up in a decentralized situation, so that purchasing departments are vanished in 20 years. That is one scenario. It could be that purchasing is disappeared completely by computers and decentralization. It's true for part of procurement and purchasing. But I think everybody has to think about it for the own situation, the own industry, the own company, the own department. And that's the point I want to give. Think about what will be your future. Will it be computerized? Will it be decentralized or not? So if not, there will be a need for another purchaser than we know now. A cost-driven purchaser is very old-fashioned. Of course, we have to look at costs, etc. But the old-fashioned penny turner purchaser who's sitting next to the stocks in the storehouse is gone. That's not the case anymore. So what we need to have in future is creative thinkers, and that's also what we see in the job advertisements. People need to able to step back, rethink, be creative, think in a strategic, holistic way. So in a case that your department is not decentralized, not computerized, and you need to be a creative, strategic, holistic thinker. Well, those are, let's say, skills that are not know what or know why, that's know how. That's soft skills. That's tacit knowledge, that's soft skills. That's the softer side than hard book knowledge.
I like it. And this is what so far computers cannot do. I don't know, will they be able to also replicate this soft skills and creativity we in 20 years from now? We never know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Klaas. It was really, really pleasure to talk to you, and I wish you best luck with your research on soft skills and hard skills in purchasing and supply management.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to do.
Wow, what a great discussion it was. And I was really enjoying every moment of talking to Klaas Stek, who is doing his research on soft skills and hard skills in purchasing and supply management. I really encourage you, my friends, to follow the link in the description of this podcast episode and to help Klaas with his research and also to get the results of this research for yourself later on. So please go through the survey attached in the our show notes. This was Future Procurement Podcast. You can still find us in iTunes, Stitcher, Android podcast platforms, and of course we very much like to receive feedbacks from you, rate and review our podcast and share it to your friends. My name is Robert Freeman, and talk to you soon. And a short funny postscriptum for you. Very interesting, Klaas. And just before we finish, the killer question: what is the difference between procurement and purchasing from your scientific perspective?
Well, that's the question I get very often. Procurement is associated with operational buying, and purchasing is strategic buying. So that's a more strategic approach of buying.
That's very good. I like your answer, because normally when I answer this question, it takes like a few minutes to answer.
An old student, both of them were students of the University of Twente, and they were testing the survey. And by the way, one said, "Is it procurement or purchasing?" And well, I gave the same answer. And he said, "See," his colleague said, "Procurement is more posh. It's a nice name. It's more fancy, procurement.
You look more cool if you said.
Yeah.
I like it.